All right, welcome back. We're now on lesson 6-7, solving quadratic equations. And we're using for right now the zero factory property. It's either sometimes called zero factory property or zero product property, depending on like the math book. Basically, you still have, like, we've been doing quadratic problems this whole time, but now they're equations. So, like, for example, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. If you were to graph that, and that's the one thing we're not going to get to this year, okay, it would be a parabola. So basically, you are solving equations, you're solving parabolas. And that is something they're going to have to pick up with next year. So, examples. We're going to start off with super easy. Now, this one is super easy because x minus 3 times the quantity x plus 1 equals 0. Number 1, it's already set equal to 0. Number 2, it's already been factored. So all you do is basically take each parenthesis, set it equal to 0, and then solve. So add 3, x equals 3, subtract 1, x equals -1. So x can basically equal 3 or -1. All right, this next example, still fairly easy. X times 5x minus 2 equals 0. Now, you still set each thing equal to 0, but now it's just x equals 0. So that one you don't even have to solve. 5x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2, 5x equals 2, divide, x equals 2/5. So basically x equals 0 and 2/5. Okay, and then I'm going to explain in a second how this would look like as we were back to like question number 2 here. If you were to graph this one, okay, this one would cross at 0 and then at 2/5. So this one would be like super, super skinny parabola. Okay, graph it, and that'll kind of be easier on this one. All right, so this is what most of them will start looking like. X squared minus 9x minus 22 equals 0. So it's the zero factor property. So the equation needs to equal 0, and then you need to factor. Now the first two, I said they were easier is because they were already factored. So now this is why we practice factoring so much. So step 1 is you need to factor this problem. Okay, so take a second, factor it. You should have come up with x minus 11, x plus 2. Now you're ready to solve. So we're just kind of adding an extra step to what we've been doing. X minus 11 equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. So basically x equals 11 and x equals -2. Okay, so now let me just show you how this all comes together. It's a parabola. Okay, so now if you were to graph, okay, let me see if that's my eraser. Yeah, let me move this part of the thing over just a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna say this is about -2. Now I'm totally estimating, and down here is 11. Okay, so now basically if you were to graph this parabola, it would look something like this, super wide. Okay, and where x equals, that's like their two crossing points. Like that's how you solve, like that's your solution to a parabola. It's where they cross the x-axis. So x equals 11, or you could do 11, 0, and then -2, 0. All right, so now if we were to go back, so I just kind of want you to have this in mind so that when you do get to graphing, it kind of makes sense. All right, so let's look at this one. -2x squared minus 4x plus 30 equals 0. All right, now for purposes of making things easier, I would take out my greatest common factor, negative 2, x squared plus 2x minus 15. Now, again, you need to factor. So negative 2, and this would factor down to be x plus 5, x minus 3. Okay, now, on question number 2, there was a variable on the outside. There's just a negative 2 on the outside. Okay, you can't solve if you don't have a variable. So for this one, you only set that one to 0, that one to 0. So x equals negative 5, x equals 3. Okay, so now I want to talk about this one for a minute, because if we were, and I am totally like, there's way more to graphing the parabolas. All right, here we have negative 5, here we have 3. Now this one, just because I know, this one, because of this negative here in front of the 2, this one is actually, if we were to graph it, is going to open that way. And then the 2 answers are those 2 points where it crossed. So I just kind of want you to just have that so that when you do graph next year, you at least maybe remember a little. All right, so question number 5. Here we go. 3x cubed minus 12x equals 0. All right, so now for this one, greatest common factor, take out, this time you have a 3x. Okay, and so this one, you would have left x squared minus 4 equals 0. 3x, now remember, hopefully remember difference of squared, x plus 2, x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, so now when you go to solve this one, because of the x on the outside, you've got to do 3x equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 0, x equals negative 2, x equals positive 2. So you can either write it 0 to negative 2, or I think your book might have done 0 and plus or minus. Now this one, because of a cube, it's going to have a whole different thing. These are cubic, okay? Parabolas have to have a squared. Cube, save that for Algebra 2. All right, let's try this one. 4x squared minus 28x equals negative 49. All right, so now, first thing, the first 5 problems were all set equal to 0 because it is the 0 factor property. So step 1, you need to add over the 49. Okay. Step 2, you need to factor. So this one should factor to be 2x minus 7, 2x minus 7, okay, or 2x minus 7, the quantity squared. Now, since the parentheses is the same, you only do one. I mean, you could do it twice, but you're going to get the same answer. So x equals 7/2. All right, so I want to talk about this one just real quick. If this were a parabola that we would be graphing, this one only has one answer. So anybody have any idea what this like parabola might do? Okay, so x equals 7/2 or 3.5. So I'd have to go here between 3 and 4. And basically, since it's a positive, I know it's going to go up. That means its vertex is only touching at this one point, okay, at the 3.5. All right, so this is another little thing that'll show up, I promise, next year. All right, so here we go. Number 7. Now this is kind of a lot because I'm trying to show you, I think there's like 8 or 9 examples because there's like a whole bunch happening here. All right, x minus 2 times x squared minus 8x plus 7 equals 0. Now for this one, the first parenthesis is already factored, but the second parenthesis is not. So you have x minus 2, then you got to factor the second parenthesis. X minus 7, x minus 1 equals 0. And now you have 3 separate ones. X minus 2 equals 0, x minus 7 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. So x equals 2, x equals 7, x equals 1. So your answer, 2, 7, 1. And since this is a cube, this is not going to be a parabola, so we wouldn't worry about graphing that one and all of that. All right, number 8. And at any time, like hit pause, work these out, and come back to C. Like this one, for example. 6x cubed plus 12x equals 17x squared. Hit pause, try to work it out on your own. Now for this one, have to set it equal to 0. So 6x cubed. Now I'm going to move, since I'm subtracting the 17x squared, I'm going to put it in order, because you definitely want them in order. Next, I'm going to take out my greatest common factor, so my x. So now I have 6x squared minus 17x plus 12. Next, I have to factor what's in my parentheses. 2x minus 3, 3x minus 4. Okay, how many answers should this one have? Should be 3, because this one has an x on the outside. So x equals 0, 2x minus 3 equals 0, and 3x minus 4 equals 0. So this one I got to solve. Okay, 2x equals 3, x equals 3 halves. This one, when I solve, x equals 4/3. So my answer, 0, 3 halves, 4/3. So you could have a situation where you have 1 answer, 2 answers, or 3 answers. All right, I believe this is my last one, and because I tried to do as many scenarios as possible. X, 2x minus 7 equals 4. Okay, so now this one. First, you need to distribute. So you're going to have 2x squared minus 7x equals 4. Then you got to set it equal to 0. So 2x squared minus 7x minus 4. Then you need to factor 2x plus 1, x minus 4. Now we're finally ready to solve. Okay, so x equals negative 1/2, x equals 4. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned, and hopefully you've noticed, I just do like x equals blank comma blank. Do not put them in parentheses. Okay, parentheses are a no-no. These are not ordered pairs unless you write them as an ordered pair. Okay, I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's about it. Now, I do want you to make sure that you look in your book, because I did 9 examples for you. However, there are some variations that could come up, so you just need to make sure that you double check. Okay, rewrite the problem, set it equal to 0, and then factor it out. All right, good luck. Bye-bye.